My name is Dr. Jonathan Oates, Archivist for the London Borough of Ealing, and this is another in the series of local history YouTube talks. Unlike the others, it will be rather longer. It will also hopefully be of a topical nature because it discusses Ealing and its neighbouring boroughs in 1937 and how they responded to celebrating the coronation of King George VI and Queen Elizabeth. On the 12th of May 1937, George VI and his wife Elizabeth were crowned King and Queen, following the death of his father George V in 1936 and the abdication of his brother Edward VIII later in that year. This talk examines how the 1937 coronation was celebrated in public in the localities which now make up the London Borough of Ealing. There also will be quotations from the diaries of Mr. Goodlet, who lived with his family in a house near Ealing Common. He was an unemployed man and was a great commentator on public events both at home and abroad in this decade. A lot of organisation into the festivities was required, and in the case of the Borough of Ealing, which was hosting events on an 8-day period, this was even more so. The committee for the coronation celebrations was headed by the Mayor, Councillor F. Woodward. Then there was the Mayoress, 7 aldermen, 4 councillors and another 38 co-opted members, including clergymen, teachers and representatives of the different political, civic, business and residents' associations in the borough. A quarter of the committee were female. Then there were some subcommittees for school souvenirs and amusements, the old people's supper and for decorations and entertainments. Finally, there were local programmes of entertainment drawn up by the councillors in both Greenford and Norfolk. Southall Council debated in January 1937 what they should do about the coronation festivities. The Labour members were not terribly enthusiastic about it, and aspersions were made on their loyalty to the Crown. There was an unwillingness to use ratepayers' money for such events. In part, this was because some people did not approve of using public money for events such as those proposed. Rather, they suggested that people contribute voluntarily to a communal pot out of which festivities could be financed. This, however, did not bring in very much money, and the council was criticised for its stand. In fact, only £112 was raised by the voluntary method, so the council gave £200 extra in order to pay the children's souvenirs, a tea for old people, and decorations to the town hall and park. There was to be a fair in Southall Park, but the fair committee pulled out, and so it was thought that the proposed bonfire and fireworks, without the fair to attract people in the first place, should not go ahead. Councillor Hutchings was very critical of the council's stand. Southall would be a black spot, he claimed, compared to neighbouring boroughs during the coronation festivities. Labour members such as Alderman Pargeter blamed those people who could afford to have subscribed to the fund but did not for the lack of coronation events. He said that shopkeepers and businesses should have contributed more generously rather than expecting the council to use ratepayers' money. There was some irony in this because traditionally Labour members are happy to spend more public money than Conservatives, but on this occasion they were not, and it is possible to believe that this was because the expenditure was for what was a celebration of a monarchist occasion, which could be deemed conservative rather than being socialist. In Acton, the council was rather more generous with ratepayers' money. They decided in January that £2,200 should be allocated. This will be spent on fireworks, music, gifts for children, old people and the unemployed, decorations and prizes for competitions. Some councillors quibbled over these sums. Aldermen, for example, wanted to cut the money for the decorations and reduce that spent on fireworks. They argued that such expenditure had no long-term value, but was only of passing entertainment use. They tried not to appear as if they were killjoys, but their amendments were defeated. The Borough of Ealing produced an official souvenir and programme of the civic proceedings. Apart from a day-to-day timetable of a week's events, there were also descriptions of structures to be built, and there were also addresses by the Mayor and the Mayoress. Mayor Woodward wrote about the loyalty of Ealing to the Crown, past and present, and referred to the privileges and freedom unknown by citizens of other states, perhaps meaning Nazi Germany or Fascist Italy. He added that under the leadership of our new King and Queen, we look forward to a period of prosperity and happiness, of peace with our neighbours, which in the light of hindsight was not to be, of course. And finally, he added, with all the peoples of his empire, we unite in singing with heart and voice, God save the King. The Mayoress addressed the borough's children on this occasion of national rejoicing about the values of loyalty and service which were given by the King and the Queen, as well as everybody else. Acton's Mayor and also Acton's MP, Herbert Duggan, wrote short pieces in the newspapers. Both were attending the coronation at Westminster in person, and the Mayor stressed the loyalty of his fellow Actonians to the Crown. He hoped again, like Ealing's Mayor, that the reign would be one of peace and prosperity. Duggan stressed the antiquity and the rites of coronation, and he added that whereas many monarchies in Europe had fallen during the First World War and afterwards, that of Britain had not. Britain also had avoided dictatorship and ruled by force because of the ceaseless and labour and measureless sacrifice of innumerable British men and women, and of the royal family itself. Acton Council sponsored a competition for the best decorated shop or house in Acton, with a cash prize going to the winner. For purposes of the competition, the borough was divided into different geographical locations, and there were 4 cash prizes in each category. We now come to the celebrations on Coronation Week itself. Day 1 was Sunday the 9th of May. In the afternoon, the Hanwell Silver Band played in Ealing Town Hall courtyard outside for half an hour. Then, at 3 o'clock, the band's men leading the procession, the civic dignitaries made up of the Mayor and Mayoress, the aldermen, the councillors and corporation officials left the town hall, proceeded via the Uxbridge Road, Culmington Road and Mattock Lane to attend divine service at St John's Church, with the Reverend John Summerhays officiating. They later returned by the same route. In Southall, there was a civic service too on the same day, and ironically enough, also at St John's Church, but this time of course in Southall rather than West Ealing. The mayor and councillors attended, as well as many local organisations such as men and women from ex-service organisations and the Salvation Army. 4 different clergymen officiated at the service, and the sermon focused on the coronation, the qualities of the new king, especially how ordinary and how decent in nature he was. He was described as not being incredibly intellectual or extremely pious, but as a quiet, dignified, consistent and good man. Day 2 was Monday the 10th of May. In the afternoon, teas were served and entertainments provided for all the junior and infant schools in Ealing and Hanwell, 13 in all. The mayor and mayoress visited each school and presented souvenirs to each child. These souvenirs were a badge brooch showing the King and Queen on one side, and on the other, the inscription presented by the Corporation of Ealing, 1937. The children also received a souvenir mug showing the royal couple. In the evening, the mayor and representatives of all the senior schools in the borough met in the Victoria Hall. And here they were given Coronation minted florins and sixpences, which would later be given out to the representatives' fellow scholars, as time did not allow the mayor to hand these out personally to each child. Unlike the junior children, the senior scholars did not receive a coronation mug. After the presentation, there was community singing led by a Mr. W.H. Robinson. In Acton, on this day, school children all received a souvenir booklet crowning the King and Queen. Derwentwater School put on a special pageant titled The Cavalcade of the Six Georges, with sketches of events from the reigns of George I up to George VI. The latter was presented as an era of youth, and so demonstrations of physical fitness featured therein. However, all was not well, as Goodlet wrote in his diary that the bus drivers, having refused a not unreasonable offer, would be out on strike over the coronation period, and the bus drivers were urging their comrades in the trams, the trolleybuses and underground trains to join them. Goodlet wrote, "Looks too much like a cruel and deliberate attempt to hamstring the public's ability to enjoy the coronation festivities. The whole thing is most regrettable." It's worth noting, of course, that in the 1930s, far fewer people had cars compared to more recent times. On the subject of paying conditions, Acton Council paid any of its employees who were working on Coronation Day double their normal pay. Only a deputation from the unions called for triple pay or double pay and a day off in lieu instead. But these extravagant demands were not entertained. Goodlet also felt disappointed at the poverty and insignificance which prevents my seeing anything of these great events, but also prevents me too from making any sort of effort to provide the mater and pater or the boys with any of the little festivities or mementos that should mark the occasion. We should remember, of course, that Mr. Goodlet had been unemployed for some years and therefore was not able to pay for any particular items that he would have liked to have done for his family. Day 3 was Tuesday, the 11th of May. Much the same as yesterday occurred, with the mayor and mayoress of Ealing visiting all the infant and junior schools in Greenford, Norfolk and Perivale, another 12 schools in all. Goodlet wrote, meanwhile, "Coming close to the great day, and already the atmosphere seems charged with that subtle, electric but elusive quality of elation and expectation that a universal event of interest and pleasure always seems to inspire." He was concerned, however, about the mist. "Pray the God that it may be gloriously fine tomorrow. It will make 100% difference to the event as a memorable and enjoyable spectacle." He bought, at least with some of his scarce money, some bunting and coronation chocolate medals for two of his younger relations, and he and his brother of his worked hard rigging up a flagpole and preparing a jack for hosting at 8 o'clock in the morning. Presumably this flagpole and the flag were in his garden at the front. Meanwhile, in Southall, the mayor made a tour of all the schools to present all the children with souvenirs. He told them that they would remember this day and tell their children about it. In the evening, 850 elderly residents of Southall were entertained by a special tea at the King's Hall Methodist Church. And, as a local newspaper reported somewhat bitterly, this was practically the extent of the council's preparations. They also wrote, "It proves more than ever that the council are quite out of touch with public opinion in the attitude they have adopted." At the King's Hall itself, the old people were distributed into 6 rooms in the building for their tea, which was sausage rolls, ham and paste sandwiches, bridge rolls, buttered buns and a variety of cut cakes. The entertainment for them was provided in the main hall by the Southall Accordion Band. In Acton, people over 70 and not contributors to the National Health Insurance Fund automatically received a gift. Poor people and the blind over 65 years could make an application for such money. The unemployed in Southall, about 800 people, were given 2 shillings each. These sums were given by the mayoress on Coronation Day at the Town Hall. Day 4 was Wednesday the 12th of May, and this was Coronation Day itself. Both in the morning and afternoon, peals of bells were rung at Christ Church, St Stephen's and St Mary's churches in Ealing. In the afternoon, there was, as there had been throughout the week, a fair on Ealing Common, with a roundabout, sideshows and so on. In the early evening, the Hanwell Silver Band played on the Common. Later in the evening, a firework display took place there, seen by the Mayor and Mayoress, with members of the Corporation and the Coronation Committee. The firework display ended with a set piece of patriotic motive alongside the band playing the national anthem. As a finale, the Mayoress lit the bonfire. Goodlet attended it, writing later, "I went out to the Common, where vast crowds had assembled to view the fireworks and to watch the lighting of the beacon. The latter was jolly fine, and the heat so tremendous that it dried the fronts of our overcoats and scorched our faces, in spite of the never-ceasing rain. After watching it until 11:30, her boys went home, and I dropped into Kid's place, where I found a merry little coronation party going on. Enjoyed myself very much there until 2 a.m. when I left." He also wrote, "The great day has come and gone, and once again we have an anointed and crowned king and queen. God bless them both, they deserve it." Day 5 was Wednesday the 12th of May. This time the centre of festivities moved away from Ealing proper. In the afternoon there was a carnival procession from Norfolk Village Green to Islip's Manor, followed by an entertainment, community singing, sports and displays. In the evening there was dancing, and at the Norfolk School people played whist or bridge. Meanwhile in Perryvale Park there were various events in the evening, including music by the ubiquitous Hanwell Silver Band and also by Stanley James's London Entertainers. There was open air dancing, clowns and ventriloquists to entertain the children, and finally a campfire rally put on by the local Boy Scout troop. The Mayor and Mayoress visited each event. Events were also held in several parks in Acton. There was a military band at Acton Park in the afternoon, followed by dancing, and in the late afternoon a firework display. At North Acton playing fields there was an orchestra playing in the afternoon, before dancing and fireworks in Acton Park. There was also an orchestra playing at Acton Green in the afternoon. A military band was there in the evening to play. There were also many street parties. In roadways liberally garlanded with flowers and streamers, somewhere about 40 street teas formed the central feature of remarkable scenes of loyalty and rejoicing in various parts of Southall on Coronation Day. Nearly 3,000 children must have been entertained at these festivities on Wednesday and the 2 following days. Now, there was no official celebration in Southall, but there were lots of street parties by the local people. In the morning, people could be seen carrying tables from nearby halls. Others moved pianos into the roadways, and there were trestle tables with placards reading "Road closed." Streets were decorated, and the less pretentious the road, the better the display seemed to be. Roads vied with each other as to present a wonderful picture of colour and a festival air. Clarence Street, apparently, was thought to be the best one in the borough. Streamers and banners stretched across the roadway. Houses were smothered with flags, bunting and streamers. The road was one billowing sea of red, white and blue. Everywhere banners read, "Long may they reign," "God bless the King," and there were also portraits shown of their majesties. On the tables were jellies, blancmanges, cakes and other delicacies for children there to eat. There was music from pianos, gramophones, jazz bands and radios. Parents as well as children wore red, white and blue hats. There were clowns, souvenirs were presented to the children, and after the food the children had games, competitions and races. Loudspeakers relayed radio broadcasts of events in London. The mayor visited 4 of these parties and was given a warm welcome. One banner read, "Dear landlord, be patriotic. Do not call for rent next week because we have not got it. Long live the King and Queen." One street found they had enough money left to send all the children from the street to Windsor for a special treat on another day. Rain in the afternoon disrupted the proceedings, but fortunately it only rained for half an hour. The local newspaper concluded, "The street treats were spontaneous demonstrations of loyalty and were characterised by a spirit of genuine rejoicing that made them far more impressive than any set programme of official events could have been." There were also a number of dancers' halls in Southall who held dances to mark the occasion. Fairlawn Hall was where 200 local Conservatives were having their dance from between 7:15 p.m. to 2 a.m. next day. A late meeting time was so people could hear the royal broadcast to the Empire. The Red Lion pub in Southall was holding a similar event, as was the Royal British Legion Southall branch, and also the Norwood Green Residents Association. Cinemas broadcast footage of the coronation, which was being televised for the first time. Only a few people had TVs. Audiences sang the national anthem and Land of Hope and Glory. And on one occasion, a mayor even gave a speech. Day 6 was Thursday, the 13th of May. In the morning, the mayor and mayoress of Ealing, along with some of the committee members, went to St David's Home for disabled ex-servicemen to distribute gifts and presents to the patients. A call was also made to the homes of those who were unable to attend in person there. In the evening, there was a supper given to 500 old people of Ealing Borough, some of which were conveyed there in motor vehicles, especially those from Norfolk, Greenford and Hanwell. This supper was held at the Ealing Studios by kind arrangement of Basil Dean and the company directors of Associated Talking Pictures. There was also a concert for the old people given by the Melodies Concert Party, and the evening ended at 10 p.m. The old people were also given chocolates and cigarettes. In Acton, the council gave small grants to those aged over 65 and those registered as unemployed. Some of these, however, did not receive their gifts for another month, such as 6 Acton unemployed men who were registered at the Kew Unemployment Exchange. Day 7 was Friday the 14th of May, when the lasting memorials to the coronation were unveiled. In the morning, the Mayor of Ealing unveiled the Coronation Clock Tower at Norfolk, which is at the junction of Mandeville Road and Ealing Road, on a small piece of land overlooking the green and a parade of shops. The tower was made of handmade brick panels with oak corner posts. The roof was covered with handmade sand-faced tiles, and a copper weather vane was at its apex. Seats surrounded the base of the clock tower. It was designed with the idea that it fitted into the rural setting. And there's also an Ealing Library's YouTube video of the clock tower, so those who want to know more about it can see that. The clock tower was built by the firm Marshall and Beestall, who gave the quotation lowest of all of the other would-be contractors, and that was for £115. At noon, there was a similar ceremony at Hanwell Broadway, where the mayor unveiled the Coronation clock tower. Unlike at Norfolk, it was made of artificial Victoria stone with a Portland stone finish. The clock's dial movements were synchronised electronically, and it had 4 illuminated dials, one for each side. All was supplied, and the clock tower was refurbished in 2002 to mark the Golden Jubilee of Queen Elizabeth II. Finally, there were the Coronation cottages on the site of Dibden House off Hanger Lane. These consisted of 12 bungalow-type dwellings, especially created for old people. They were arranged in 3 blocks, each of 4 houses, each altogether in the form of a crescent. Each had a living room, kitchen, bedroom and bathroom. All were supplied with electricity, water and gas. The architect of all these edifices was Mr. Forte, who was the borough engineer. Acton Council discussed whether they should find money to establish a permanent health centre for nursing and expectant mothers and school clinics to mark the coronation, and it was suggested that a subcommittee be established to discuss this. But the idea went no further. The plans did not see the light of day. In Southall, a number of trees were planted to mark the coronation at the encouragement of a vicar at Holy Trinity Church, because he said that these would make Southall and other places more beautiful and also to commemorate the occasion. How many were planted locally, we do not know. To mark the end of the day, high tea was served at Norfolk School for people aged over 65. Catering was by the Norfolk Women's Institute. The Norfolk Dramatic Society then gave a performance. The final day of the coronation festivities was Sunday the 16th of May, when there was a coronation celebrations Thanksgiving service at Walpole Park. This consisted of hymns, an opening prayer, scripture readings, music by the West Middlesex Musical Society, as well as the area band of the Salvation Army. The rural dean gave a benediction at the end. The total cost for Ealing Council, spent excluding money spent on buildings, was £3,462 and 2 pence. Of this, nearly half went on costs for the children's events, and about a 20th for those for old people, who of course were a far smaller number than the children. There was a united Thanksgiving service in Acton Park on the day of this afternoon. Clergy of all denominations attended, as well as the mayor and the councillors, with representatives of local organisations, and the band was for the music was provided by the Salvation Army. The Goodlet was in conclusion downbeat about it all. He wrote, "And so closes the coronation week, leaving me personally with a dull sense of fulfilment and insignificance." But this, of course, tells us more about the diarist rather than the event. Not everybody, of course, marked the event in public. Goodlet recorded that he and his family listened to the coronation service on the wireless, and when it came to the King's speech, the diarist wrote, "I confess I was a little at ease, but for he sometimes makes long pauses in his speaking, and one feels he will break down, but he never does, and resumes the speech quite naturally." He then added, "Anyway, it was a fine address, full of sense, dignity and good feeling, and when at its close Sir Thomas Beecham of the Covent Garden Orchestra burst out into God Save the King, sung by Miss Eva Turner. I will wager there was scarce a single person in the British-speaking world that did not stand to attention and sing it too, and what is more, meant every word. Although Goodlet did not go up to central London to see the procession or the festivities, and only took part in the local ones, he did comment on the events in detail, with information from the newspapers and the wireless. He noted there were 2 state banquets at Buckingham Palace. There were numerous foreign dignitaries, representatives of the Dominion and Empire, and a naval review at Spitfield. I've already talked about the street parties in Southall, but there are also street parties in Acton and Ealing. In January 1937, a Mr. Smith of Stirling Road, Acton, wrote to the council to ask could he arrange a street party for Coronation Day. The council said they had no permission to grant the use of streets for such purpose, and the police's permission would need to be obtained. At Canada Crescent Estate in Acton, the tenants asked the council could they connect their illuminations to the council's electrical main, but it is turned down on the basis it could be dangerous, and also because the party was starting at 4 o'clock in the afternoon and it should be well over before darkness intervened. The council also told people that that street parties should not be in the paved area round houses, but held in the open streets. Interestingly enough, the best decorated areas in Acton were areas which were Labour Party strongholds, especially streets to the north and south of Bollowbridge Road. Apparently, even before noon, South Acton was like a fair in animation and general gleeful interest. Groups of neighbours gathered at all street corners to congratulate themselves on their good taste in decorative achievement. This was in contrast to the streets of Bedford Park. Several of them rather elaborate, but no attempt has been made to create a unified, symmetrical display. Genteel neighbours do not know so much about each other as they do in working class areas, and they are not so much accustomed to cooperate on great national occasions. There was also some controversy over Acton Council's decision to employ Mr. Tyler of Stratford-upon-Avon, who is regarded as England's master ox roaster, to roast an ox on Acton Green all day, and for the meat to be sliced off and given to onlookers in the evening. Vegetarians were offended, as were many in India. The latter sent a deputation to the Prime Minister about this and other such proposed events. Close to home, one Edward Barnes of Viner Road wrote to express his views. It does not elevate, educate or amuse. It was a poor, filthy exhibition and offensive to foreign visitors and a waste of money. The rector of Acton, St. Peter's, and the Acton Men's Adult School also objected, and one man compared the event to the natives of Kenya roasting a hippopotamus and implied it was a very uncivilized practice. However, it went ahead. Many people were very interested in ox roasting. 500 people assembled after 4 o'clock for a slice of meat. The meat was put into bread rolls and put on a side dish. Distribution lasted 3 hours and 1,000 people partook of it. Remaining meat was given away to children who brought large plates with them. One commentator wrote, "There was nothing to shock the most sensitive and most delicately nurtured individual in the ox roasting which took place in South Acton. I watched it for 5 minutes without a shudder, and I observed no signs of horror or distress." To conclude, therefore, the coronation of George VI was celebrated in ways that were similar and different throughout our locality. Gifts and entertainments were provided for school children and the elderly. In Acton's case, this was in form of gifts compared to a supper and entertainment. Ealing Council paid for permanent reminders of the coronation, which still exist to this day. Southwold Council was the least generous of these three councils. Acton Council paid for an ox roast, which had to prove controversial for some. The competition to for the best house and shop decorations in Acton occurred, but it was not all gifts from above, for there was outpourings of street parties throughout the district, as well as council-sponsored events, fireworks, bonfires, music and dancing. There's clear evidence of enthusiasm of many people to celebrate the coronation. This seems especially common among the working classes. Some, of course, avoided the public celebrations, with Goodlet only going to bonfire and fireworks on the common, and also to private parties. Perhaps this was a middle class phenomenon. There seems, however, to be no voices of dissent, and those few communists, if any, in the locality seem to be in silence. So it seems that coronation festivities in Ealing in 1937 was evidence of genuine popular support for the monarchy. God save the King. Thank you for listening to this video. Please remember to hit the like button and to subscribe and to write your comments below. Thank you.